Do you know how much it costs to build a single hotel? Usually it requires hundreds of millions, sometimes even billions of dollars. And yet, global hotel chains like Hilton and Marriott rarely build hotels anymore. In fact, in most cases, they don't even own them. Despite that, their revenue has grown multiple times over, and their profitability is at an all-time high. So what exactly changed in this industry? Today, we'll look at how the entire structure of the hotel business was completely transformed. The hotel business model we're familiar with has almost disappeared. When figures like Conrad Hilton and J. Willard Marriott began building hotel chains in the late 19th century, the model was simple. Buy land, build the property, operate it yourself. Cesar Ritz set the standard for luxury hotels. Hilton expanded through standardized service, and Marriott grew with a strong focus on the customer. But this model had a fatal weakness. The hotel business is structurally burdened with extremely high fixed costs. Even without guests, housekeeping staff are needed, the front desk must remain open, and building maintenance costs continue every month. On top of that, travel demand is highly sensitive to the economy. The gap between peak and off seasons is large, and when the economy slows, demand drops sharply. It's common for the same room to be priced several times higher in peak season than in off season. In the 2000s, things became even tougher. With the rise of online booking platforms like Expedia and Booking.com, consumers could compare prices across dozens of hotels with just a few clicks. Competition intensified, and price pressure increased. Hotels were investing massive capital to build and operate properties, yet had to pay commissions to platforms for every room sold. Then, in the early 2000s, a major shift began. Marriott moved first, followed by Hilton and Hyatt. Their decision was bold. They chose to sell off large portions of their hotel real estate assets. In 2017, Hilton separated its core real estate holdings and exited the timeshare business. The reason was clear. They realized that owning the brand was far more profitable than owning the buildings. Today, less than 1% of Marriott's and Hilton's hotels are directly owned by them. Most properties are owned by other investors who pay fees to use the brand. To understand this, we need to look at the industry structure again. Today's hotel industry consists of three key players. First, the hotel brands, companies like Hilton and Marriott. Second, the hotel owners, investors who actually own the land and buildings. Third, the operators, specialized firms that handle daily hotel operations. Here's how the system works. When an investor secures land and capital to build a hotel, they approach the brand headquarters to request brand affiliation. The brand approves it and takes a percentage of hotel revenue as a fee, usually between 5% and 15%. The owner bears the construction costs, operating costs, and all business risks, while the brand provides only its name and earns recurring income. The effectiveness of this structure is clear in the numbers. When Hilton owned many hotels directly, its operating margin was around 20%. After completing its asset-light strategy, by 2023, that margin exceeded 35%. Over the same period, return on invested capital jumped from 4% to 27%. Capital expenditures were also cut by more than half. This shift was possible because the cost structure changed completely. With no need to build or renovate properties, large capital expenditures disappeared, and headquarters staffing could be kept lean. The main costs became management and system operations, which grow more efficient as scale increases. Even as the number of hotels grows, headcount at headquarters barely increases. One of the biggest advantages of this model is resilience during economic downturns. When you own hotels, recessions hit hard. Revenue falls, but fixed costs remain. In the franchise structure, that risk is absorbed by the hotel owners. The brand takes a percentage of revenue, making its income relatively stable. The COVID-19 pandemic made this difference unmistakably clear. In 2020, revenue per available room fell by more than half, yet Hilton maintained its cash flow. Loyalty programs and licensing income acted as a financial buffer. Expansion speed also changed completely. Under the traditional model, opening a single hotel took years and massive capital. Under the franchise model, growth can happen through contracts alone. That's how Marriott was able to multiply its scale over the past 20 years. So why would hotel owners give up a portion of their profits to join a franchise? The answer lies in brand power. A well-known brand allows hotels to charge higher room rates and earn greater customer trust. The real change created by this structure is not simply that hotels started making more money. What truly changed is who survives and who carries the risk. That balance was completely reshaped. Many people believe this model eliminated risk, but risk didn't disappear, it just moved. In today's structure, the burden of recessions, demand shocks, and operational failure falls on the ones who own the buildings. On the other hand, those who own the brand are largely shielded from direct damage. Within the same industry, the weight of risk is no longer evenly shared, and that's why outcomes began to diverge. With every crisis, the gap grew wider. Some companies survived because of their structure. Others were pushed out of the same market. This wasn't a matter of management skill, it was a matter of choice. The COVID-19 pandemic showed the results of that choice in the most extreme way possible. Demand collapsed, but companies that had already changed their structure kept their systems intact. The crisis hit everyone, but the outcomes were not the same. From that point on, the questions investors asked began to change. Not, how many buildings do you own, but how much control do you have? That became the core question. Those who hold control set prices, standards, and systems. Even without operating directly, they can effectively steer the direction of the entire industry. That is the real power of this structure. And that's why the industry itself changed. The hotel industry is no longer just about accommodation. It has become an ecosystem where capital, operations, and service are separated around the brand. Roles are divided, but power is concentrated on one side. Over time, this gap only widens. Those who own the brand expand, defend, and set the rules. Those who own the buildings face immediate pressure when profits decline. The key was never the buildings. This shift didn't happen because hotels gave up real estate. It happened because they chose what to own. What hotel chains chose was not property, but brand and systems. Not running the game directly, but controlling the board. That's why the real way hotels make money today is this: not by selling more rooms, but by changing who carries the risk. So there's one final question. Are other industries we see today standing at the same crossroads? Leave your thoughts in the comments.